The integration of the country into the Spanish Empire resulted into the implementation of various government restrictions that made the people experience hardships and miseries. Discontent with Spanish rule was first expressed in the regional revolts that broke out in the archipelago from 1574 to 1843. However, these revolts against Spanish rule were fragmented and disorganized, and subsequently failed due to lack of communication, absence of national leaderships, and Spain's policy of divide and rule. As Filipinos were made to fight one another, they failed to realize that their common enemy was the Spaniards. The opening of the country to world commerce was a consequence of Spain's adoption of the free market policy. With the entry of foreign products and businessmen, the economic isolation of the Philippines was ended. Filipino intellectuals came to learn of the revolutionary ideas of the likes of Locke and Rousseau. These intellectuals then started to wonder at the deplorable conditions of the country. The rise of a new middle class can be traced to the prosperity of a relatively small class of mestizos and the principalia or ruling elite who benefited from the opening of the country to foreign commerce and trade. Families which prospered during this time were able to send their sons for an education in Europe. Being educated in Europe, these sons of prosperous families were able to see the basic difference of European and Filipino societies and witness the more progressive state of other countries. As a result, these European educated Filipinos became disillusioned with Spain. From their ranks emerged Filipino propagandists clamoring for change in the Philippines. The fall of Queen Isabella and the triumph of liberalism in Spain in 1869 resulted into the appointment of Carlos de la Torre as Governor-General in the Philippines. De la Torre demonstrated his democratic and liberal philosophy by encouraging the aspirations of the reformists and abolishing the censorship of the press. The friars disliked this recent development since for the first time, the Filipinos were allowed to talk about freedom and democracy openly. This motivated Father Burgos and other Filipino clergy to work for the Filipinization of parishes throughout the country. However, with the restoration of the Spanish monarchy in 1870 and the return of conservatism in Spain, De la Torre was removed from office and replaced by the reactionary Rafael de Izquierdo, who boasted that he came to the Philippines with a cross on one hand and a sword on the other. The Spaniards considered the Filipinos an inferior race and called them Indios. In a pamphlet by Fray Miguel de Bustamante, the Filipino is portrayed as an individual with low mental ability, incapable of acquiring European education, and fitted only to work in the field and tend a carabao. This kind of attack against the Filipino race intensified the enmity between the Filipinos and Spaniards, especially the friars. Racial discrimination had led them to realize that the Spaniards and the Filipinos were two separate, distinct peoples. This issue cropped up when the Jesuits were expelled from the country in 1768, leaving Filipino seculars to fill up their parishes. Leading the struggle was Father Pedro Pelaez. The controversy became acute when the Jesuits returned to the Philippines. Parishes under the Filipino priests were taken over by the friars, which sparked protests. Since the loss of the Manila parishes would mean that Filipino seculars would have no hope in becoming parish priests again, Father Pelaez appealed to the Queen Isabella II for ecclesiastical equality. However, Pelaez died in 1863 due to an earthquake, and the struggle for equality was temporarily stopped. Father Burgos continued the struggle started by his former professor. He defended the move undertaken by Archbishop Gregorio Meliton Martinez in training the Filipino seculars to become good parish priests. He appealed to the Spanish Queen to give the Filipino priests the chance to prove that they can equal the Spanish regulars. He argued for secularization and the preferential right of the secular clergy to the parishes. This controversy led to the unification of the Filipino clergy, which in effect strengthened their sense of identity. For the first time, the word Filipino meant not only the Filipino Spaniards, now it included the native clergy. On the night of January 20, 1872, a mutiny broke out among Filipino soldiers in the arsenal of Cavite, under the leadership of Sergeant Lamadrid. This mutiny was brought about by Izquierdo's abolition of their previous exemption from tribute and forced labor. The Spanish authorities took advantage of the situation by arresting liberal-minded Filipinos. The incident was exaggerated by the Spaniards, particularly the friars, to implicate Fathers Jose Burgos, Mariano Gomez, and Jacinto Zamora due to their active involvement in the campaign for the secularization of parishes. They were executed by Garrote for alleged complicity in the rebellion. The Filipinos deeply resented the execution of Camburza. They hailed the 3 Filipino priests as true martyrs, and their death made the Filipinos realize the need for unity to end their miseries. Although Rizal was still very young when the mutiny broke out, he was already aware of the dreadful conditions of the country. When he heard of the martyrdom of Camburza, he changed his mind about being a Jesuit and swore to dedicate his life to vindicate the victims of Spanish oppression.